Welcome to today's episode of the Science of Golf Performance. My name's Chris. I'm a physical therapist, the founder here at Par for Success, and I wanted to talk about an important topic that has come up a lot recently on social media, the idea of non-dominant side swings. I want to talk about them particularly in the context of do they prevent injury? This is a really hot topic, and honestly, there's not much research on it. But I put out a paper recently about kind of listing out looking at the research of all the different theories that are out there. And this is one that really is near and dear to my heart as a physio, seeing people who get hurt. And the question is, basically I'm a right-handed player. So if I swing to my left, that's considered my dominant side. If I in turn, come back and I swing to my left or to my right, so like a left-handed player, that would be my non-dominant side. So the question at stake here is, should I have golfers swing this way to reduce their risk of injury? Well, so what I wanted to start with is, there are kind of the top two areas that we see injuries in golfers. First, low back. Second is going to be lead side arm, so wrist, elbow, shoulder. So for a right-handed player, it would be the left side of the left arm that's more likely to get hurt, right shoulder for a left-handed player. Now, so those are where most common injuries happen. That's very well stated in research and lots of different research. What I want to talk about is the actual risks of injury that we do know and the ways to actually truly decrease risk of injury in golf. The first is having proper mobility in your four main rotational centers. So neck rotation, shoulder external rotation, hip internal rotation, so into your lead hip and you follow through into your trail hip on your takeaway, and trunk rotation or thoracic spine. Those are the four main rotary centers. If you don't have full rotation in any of those four, you do have an increased risk of injury. We've seen that over 1,300 golfers at this point that we've actually studied have the biggest database in the world. There is a definite relationship between failing that and having injury, as well as also not swinging as fast as you could. So definitely we have that free home assessment you can take. We have that in the link below. By all means, check yourself out there. That's number one. Number two is going to be if you have your general power percentiles are lower than where your club head speed percentile is. This is based on your age and your sex. So if you're a 55-year-old guy compared to other 55-year-old guys, if your power output, and we have three main power tests that correlate really highly to club head speed, if those power percentiles are, let's say, put you in the 20th percentile, so either 8 out of 10 guys are producing more power than you in those tests, but your technique, your equipment's really good. We see this a lot with low handicappers, and your club head speed is in the 80th percentile. So that gap where your 80th club head speed, 20th percentile in power production means you have an injury gap. If that is you have a higher chance of injury. So by reducing that gap, we reduce the chances of you getting hurt. The third area, and the third and final big area is strength. So we're seeing a definite relationship between how fast people swing and how strong they are. We're starting to see this in some of our LPGA or our higher level golfers. If you're swinging in that top 10 percentile and you're not, deadlifting or squatting, there's specific metrics. For deadlift, we're starting to see at least 1.5 times body weight. Your chances of injury likelihood of being hurt go up. So if you lack strength, if you lack rotational mobility, or if you lack power, those are three areas where if you improve those, you will decrease the likelihood of injury. We've seen that longitudinally in our data sets. Over the last 3-4 years, over 1,000 golfers that we've tracked. We've worked with additional probably 3,000 on top of that we haven't tracked formally. There's also been studies done in science on asymmetrical. So when I swing to the left, golfers have an asymmetrical muscle balance. So one of the big theories here is, hey, if we swing opposite side, we're going to balance that off. So that would basically, the way we increase, or the reason why golfers have an asymmetrical muscle balance, because they swing thousands of times, as a right-handed player, I swing thousands of times to my left. I'm not really ever swinging to my right. Now, the only way, if we just use common sense here, for there to be a muscle mass equivalent would be for every swing I go left, I have to go right. That's never going to happen, particularly in an elite golfer. You're not going to have a golfer swing 1,000 times to the non-dominant side. That's just a waste of time. They could be working on lots of other things, particularly when we know there's three very concrete ways that we can decrease risk of injury. The other is going to be, in these studies they did, they found, to the dominant side, golfers had a much higher, basically, ability to produce power as well as muscular endurance compared to non-golfers. Again, kind of a no-brainer. But the question here is that a performance benefit? Has that been an adaptation that's been made from golfers in order to increase performance? Interestingly, in all this research, none of the researchers brought up the concern that was an injury risk. They thought that was actually going to be a performance enhancement. So I just thought that was really interesting in the research that they're literally testing this, and nowhere do they say, hey, this could be a chance that somebody gets hurt. I think of other sports, there's always going to be asymmetries. A lot of times asymmetries are what make the athletes great. So, but I think as we getting into the crux of this, as we come to our follow through on our dominant side, a lot of the thought is, we need to balance off. I think we've established you're never going to do that. So you're not going to really make a inherent beneficial dent into that. So let's look at other areas. The other is, well, if you can't decelerate, you can't slow it down. If we swing opposite, we're gonna get better breaks. We're gonna be able to slow that down going to the lead side. So if we assume that that's true, if I'm coming through this way through impact, there's two ways that I can slow down. One is going to be eccentrically having the strength to create force to decelerate the club, or two would be with a stretch shorten cycle. As I come this way, it's more plyometric, where I kind of hit here. I don't actually come back and shorten. If you think of plyometric training, I'm going to put a stretch on the tendons, and then basically the nervous system would store energy, and then I would try to come back as hard as I can. So it's basically like, think of the first half of a plyometric activity. Coming down, stretch, but we don't really actively shorten. So it's kind of just a passive, we stretch, and then think of the rubber band stretching, and then it just kind of brings you back to start. Those would be the two ways that we're thinking of deceleration. Now, if we're going with the theory that it's an eccentric strength thing, right? We need to maximize motor unit recruitment. Well, so that means I need to decelerate. It's the muscles that would shorten or pull me back this way. So the thought has been, well, if I swing non-dominantly, I'm going to swing this way, and I'm actually going to make them stronger. A couple problems. Number one, this is all you got, a club, not enough load to actually create a strength response. Number two, you're going to create increase motor unit with an eccentric contraction as opposed to a concentric contraction. So if I'm strengthening, theoretically, concentrically the muscles that need to contract eccentrically, there's going to be way better ways to do that. Eccentric flywheel training, other eccentric overload to that side for these muscles to slow us down as we come through here to slow us down. So strength argument really doesn't have a ton of merit there. Plyometrically, I think there could potentially be some merit, but we'd have to train that in a way that is actually plyometric in nature to increase the tendinous ability for us to absorb force and basically build up our brakes. The way that would have to happen is we would basically have to have that stretch and then train that shortened cycle back to increase the ability to absorb load and back. So it wouldn't be a non-dominant swing that we would be doing. What we'd actually be looking at is as hard as we can, maximally effort coming here and then maximally coming back. So working on the decel and then transfer the energy back. So it would look kind of like this, right? I take it back, come through hard, and then trying to come back. Come through hard, come back. So really getting all the way through, almost plyometrically, a sport-specific plyometric activity to a degree to come back. So in both of these instances, neither one of these are a non-dominant swing. Non-dominant is going to concentrically train what needs to eccentrically contract if we're thinking on a strength perspective. If we're training stretch, shorten cycle non-dominantly, could that help us performance-wise to transfer more energy back and through? Yes. But in the context of talking injury prevention, hopefully as we've gone through this, you've stayed with me. You may need to watch this another time or two. But the argument for non-dominant side injury prevention, as we look through the research, as we look at the data that we have here, is actually pretty low. So if you're going to do non-dominant swings, I'm not going to get down the other rabbit holes of reasons why you may or may not want to do them. But if you're doing them for injury prevention, stop. There are a lot better ways to prevent injury in golf. Make sure you have good 4 rotary centers. Make sure your power percentiles are within 15 percentile points of your speed. And then also make sure that your strength numbers, particularly in your deadlift, your squat, and your bench press, are high enough to support how fast that you're swinging. So definitely check out the links below. We have a couple free home assessments for you to check those areas to really actually reduce your risk of injury. And as always, if you like the video, subscribe, like it, share it with your friends. Anybody who knows who's doing lots of non-dominant training, please share this with them. Give them some actual scientific context of why they may or may not want to be doing that. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.